another riveting edition of Risk and Return. I'm Charlie Gasparino from Fox Business, the New York Post, with my partner in crime, the granddaddy of data, Bob Sloan from S3 Data, the best data provider in the world, the top independent data provider on the Bloomberg terminal. We have a special guest today, probably the best guest anybody can get. It's Jack Devine.
In the world.
Jack Devine, just so you know, was the CIA for a long time, and he's here with us. Right now he's with the Arkin Group, which provides very high-level intel on global affairs. But he's going to break down Iran and a lot more in a few minutes. But first, a little note for our friends at Celitas. Did I pronounce that name right?
Celitas. Yes, Celitas. Celitas, I've been taking Celitas. It's right.
And you're
fantastic.
You're regular with it.
It's 100%. But the actual benefit is that it helps your immune system really well. Okay. So I've been taking it, like everybody else, you get these nagging colds in the wintertime, and your own immune system can fight it off. That's number one. Two, your recovery time of workout is much
So
better.
I can take this home.
You should, because you post like a madman about your workouts.
Yeah, and I get sick of it.
And then, we'll report back.
Listen, a lot's going on in the world right now. There's no better person to break it down than you. And by the way, you essentially said this was going to happen 6 months ago.
He did.
You were hinting that we're reaching this sort of boiling point with Iran. It was they were doing stuff that was sort of counterproductive to a peaceful world, particularly in that very important region. That was even before it became clear that they plotted to kill President Trump. I mean, at least there is significant evidence that is the case. And when that came out, that report, Bob Sloan, I remember we were talking about this, he said 100% we're attacking. This was about a month and a half, 2 months ago. And so here we are. We're at kind of war. Is this a war, or how would you describe it?
Well, I don't know how else you can describe it.
Yeah.
When you're bombing another country and you're able to do it at will.
Right.
So I think we're at war. And, people could talk about technicalities, but I think if you go to the 6th grade and say, you think you're at war, people would say yes.
Well, there's a fog of war in any war, including this one. There's what the White House says. There's the hysterical stuff. I think some of the hysterical that I read in the New York Times sounds like we're losing if you read the New York Times. Where do you think we are in this thing, and how far along? Is there any way to tell?
Well, the word fog of war, I'm not sure how foggy it is. I get paid, and I think the two of you get paid to deal with that fog and try and sort it out. I think if people pay attention and actually following the news day in and day out and listening to what people are saying, there's not as much fog, in my view. I mean, I think we're looking at a new Middle East that has changed since October 7th when Hamas invaded Israel and there was a massacre. I think from that moment forward, there was a reshaping of the Middle East. Iran was a powerful force in the Middle East. Today it isn't. Its allies and proxies aren't. I mean, we have really, that's not fog. I mean, that's just the reality of where we are. I don't think anyone can dispute that. I don't think anyone can dispute the fact that the Iranians' nuclear program has been greatly destroyed, right? Not totally, but it's a long way back.
Yes.
Your country is in turmoil. It's in a very vulnerable position. I think this is a good place. That doesn't take away what I would say around the corner what's going to happen. But I would say today, the clarity of what was going to happen and when it was going to happen has been pretty clear. I think, not to elongate this any further, but I think President Trump was clear that he was going to negotiate. But we weren't going to, nuclear weapon was not going to be in the hands of the Iranians. I've been saying that for 25 years. Wherever we end up, whatever administration,
You have, at least.
it is not going
I
to be
remember when
there.
you said it. Yeah.
Listen to them.
Yeah.
Listen to them. You're not going to have it. You're not going to negotiate. Then bad things are going to happen. So I think the sequence is right. Now there's a lot of things about what about the Strait? What about the air? What's going to happen afterwards? That's not fog, in my view. I mean, these are pieces on the board that I think we can discuss, and I think that's a part of my job today,
Right.
to try and get information that supports good analysis. So I don't think it's as foggy, but I think maybe we talk about what are some of the issues, and then I think we can see whether we're dealing with fog,
Let me
a
just
light mist, or sunshine.
let's start with one thing that I know is near and dear to the hearts of every oil trader, commodities trader out there. Can we get oil in and out? Is that going to happen? Will the U.S. be able? Will the U.S. Navy escort be enough to get stuff in and out of that?
Well, I think the question, first of all, is if there is a block, how long is it will last, right? The second is, I'm going to say something like I said about the nuclear weapon. The Straits are not going to be blocked for very long. You say, how can you say that?
How could you say that?
Yeah, we're not going to let it happen.
Okay.
Not, in other words, Clark Island's going to go.
Right.
Every ship in the Strait will be disappear, right? So, can there be? I do think there's risk with escorting. Right now, as far as I can tell, the Iranians have chose not to divide. Why? Because you have Chinese oil flowing through. There's a bigger play about China getting its oil back.
That's true. If they block it, they block China again.
So I think there's
that's
talks,
their benefactor.
I think there's talks about that.
Yes.
So I think they're going to have to. It's a card they could play, but it only means you get pummeled more, and the Straits will be open. We're not going to leave it. It's 2 weeks. I don't know. It could be disruptive to the markets. It swung hugely today on two public statements. I mean, why did the markets swing on just a couple statements?
Oh,
I think you stand back and say, well, do we really think that after what we've just done, that we're going to let the Iranians somehow shut down? It's not going to happen for a meaningful period of time.
just so you know, commodities traders are like equities traders. You cannot trust them. They trade off headlines. They're extremely myopically focused on the short term. I saw somebody trade up, buying the market right before the financial crisis, and it was fake because it was on an errant headline, and then obviously financial crisis came and everything collapsed. So there's some parallel. Go ahead, Bob.
So Jack, in an environment like this where you have you're rewriting a lot of geopolitical risk on the fly. If you're in financial markets, data, we're in the data business. Right? But in a situation like this, what else do you need?
So I think the question when we're looking at this, if you're following the headlines, you're in trouble, right? You need to be in front of the headlines. How do you get in front of the headlines? And that is you maximize the data. But you have to get the best data. AI it's so useful in so many ways. But when you start talking about the markets, you have to be very careful because it is the aggregation of conventional wisdom. That's yesterday. You don't know what decision has been made within the clearing circle or in Beijing. In other words, you've got to be a little bit careful when you're using exclusive data. And I think some of the hedge funds today are over-reliant on technical data. Okay, and maybe not the right data. They should be talking to you and Bob about how do you track and what do you track. But there is intelligence that is old-fashioned, and therefore the new world is reluctant to embrace it. And that is actually having a human source in Beijing and Moscow and Israel that are well-wired, well-plugged in. I'm not talking spies meeting in the middle of the night, but you need ground truth because otherwise, left in a room with AI, or left in a room with very wise people in Washington sitting around the table, they'll all be telling each other the same thing. And part of what I spent 20-some years building, and before that, running for 30 years, intelligence network. So I would say the thing that people are missing, although not everybody's behind the curve. There are some companies that you can see have actually begun to develop true geopolitical units in their investment programs. And I would submit, if you want to look at the numbers, those that are doing better is because they're relying on new streams of information.
So, having said that, you wrote a master class about how and why and when regime change can actually happen. What assets you need to actually do that. What do you see today in terms of it is more or less stated policy for us to, we're out there trying to do regime change. That's what we're trying to do. So what do you need and what do you think we're trying to do?
So we have a surprise participant here today in our audience who has read both of my books. And I test both of you. He's going to give me better answers, right? We know that. So, Mr. Green, I'm not going to bring you on and put you on the spot. But in both books, I said I was going to call, the first book's called Good Hunting.
Mr. Green is from the movie Reservoir Dogs, is it?
No, I think he's the son of a very prominent lawyer in town who was wise and prudent.
And he's sitting right here, but we don't go further.
We don't go any further than that. So when I was writing the first book called Good Hunting, and it took me 2 years, this is how bright I am to find the title of a book. But that's what CIA people say to each other when they go out to do a sensitive mission. Instead of good luck break a leg, it's good hunting. But I almost called it, all it takes is a spark. Why was that? I can't tell you, when you get the regime change, how many people over the years came in when I was running either worldwide operations or part of the world. When I say our operational program, people would come and say, Jack, my country's in trouble. But the people are ready to go. All they need is the CIA to light the spark, and it'll all fall apart. I walked each of them to the door. I said, come back when you just don't want to hold my coat, but when you have the infrastructure, when you have a realistic possibility, when you have forces on the ground. Forces on the ground isn't popular discontent with the government. You have to have armed elements to fight. So I think one of the wrong-footed things about the present development was too much emphasis was put on regime change. And I believe some of our allies are much more staunchly into it. You can have, it's very hard to bring about. I do not see on the ground, people were predicting a spontaneous uprising, right? It didn't happen. Why? Because none of the people have arms. It's not like the United States, there's no Second Amendment, there's no arms. You're on the street, you're dead. So when you're talking about this, you have to think about how can you bring about a regime change. And I actually think the president's on the right track, even though it is not in my books, because I wasn't foreseeing the Venezuela model, where you go in and you take out the head of state.
Well, it's kind of regime changing, isn't it?
No, but you're left behind.
But they're all changing.
You left behind. You left behind Madeira's partners.
Right, but they're all changed. They're all like.
So, what I'm saying, if you can't overthrow the Ayatollah,
right.
You can't overthrow it, then you've got to cut a deal. But the deal is something that's manageable. So when we're talking about popular uprisings, allowing information so people can be inspired on the streets, you're asking people to walk into my personal view of death trap. So I think, honestly, there's, again, not all of the allies are lined up with this, but I think that formula of you've done enough damage that now you cut something where you are now have cut a deal where they will not have a nuclear weapon, they will not have the ballistic weapons, and they will behave themselves because their economy is in such bad shape, which you are better on, financially, economically. If we just took our hands off, the country would be in deep, deep trouble of survival as a functioning state.
Well, what's interesting about the Venezuelan scenario, because I just spoke with the White House on this, believe it or not, because I'm doing a story about Doug Burgum went to Venezuela and cut some deals for minerals. I mean, they seem purely transactional right now. They want to deal with the U.S. They want to open their economy up. They want to be part of the global community. It seems like, you know, it's regime change in a different way. Like they're changing away from where they were to something different after we, you know, did what we did. And I'm wondering, I don't know if the situation is completely parallel. I mean, we're talking about Marxism versus radical Islamicists, but if you kill enough of them in leadership, you know, people start to change their views a little bit. I wonder if we're at that tipping point yet.
Let me try a different version of that. And that is, you often hear people say, don't expect Thomas Jefferson. Now I'm hearing George Washington, but it used to be Thomas Jefferson. That means you're not going to go to a democracy. So if the goal in Venezuela was to go to democracy, you weren't going to get it by taking out Maduro. You can get it by these transactional deals, where after a while they figure, okay, I've got enough money, and now we'll go to an election and you'll get there. But it's not immediate. And I'm saying there's the immediacy in Iran is almost the same. You're not going to get, there isn't anybody. If you want to name a couple, I'd be glad to entertain them. But I don't see anyone that has the power on the ground, not sitting in Paris or Washington. I don't see anybody that can rally you. So you get a transactional relationship and you move to something different, but they're not hostile. We're doing business with them and it's under control. He says, the president says, I run Venezuela, and he said he's going to run Iran. Let me say that's figurative speaking, but I understand the concept, which is let's have a working relationship here.
Right, and
You don't have to be anti-American,
right,
death to American Israel.
And financing every tin pot, every Hezbollah, every Houthi uprising. By the way, I don't know if they have much money for that right now. Iran. I mean, do they have an economy right now?
Oh, I think right now the ability to spread money around, they need to get bread on the table.
That's right. That's
whatever the prices were. Remember, the banks are closed. What's going to happen if there is any trade the minute the banks open? I mean, they have serious economic. Now, you may have popular uprisings not related to regime change, just total dissatisfaction. Then you can have clashes, but then you end up with chaos. You don't have organized laying in the plumbing regime change heading towards elections. That's not in the cards.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with cutting a deal. I don't understand our resistance to it. In fact, diplomacy is all about cutting a good deal.
Well, what would you do? What would be prescriptive in a deal where you felt comfortable cutting it? So in other words, what checks and balances would we need to actually make sure that the deal sticks?
I mean, again, I don't think there's fog. I think they've been stated. No nuclear program, no ballistic missiles. You got to behave yourself. By that I mean, if you're going to start funding, we're going to find it, and we will return to discipline, right? But I think once they get a taste of stability, there's a lot of people that have been killed in this battle, and you keep popping your head up, and so there's motivation to find a deal. But I think the biggest motivation is, what's the alternative? We just let the President of the United States keep bombing us until we can't take it anymore.
What does it tell you?
That's probably not a great place.
Do you think the current guy survives?
Well, I was going to ask, what is it?
What was it at 12 o'clock?
Well, but the sun shows, they have a ceremony, but not a ceremony, they have a kind of a swearing gathering to announce this new leadership, and he doesn't show up. So what does that tell you? Anything? Does it mean anything?
He's a very smart man.
Yeah. Right.
So, but I think we have to be very careful to make too light. Here's a surprise for a lot of people that were pushing for the regime change before this. There was a full expectation there would be a spontaneous uprising and a change, and the government would fall apart. That did not happen. The military is still the military. The IRG, it's a different group. The clerics decide. In other words, it is still functioning. That split, that division that is necessary, did not happen. And we have changed our tune as you change your tune when you realize your first option was not realistic. And now what I'm hearing, the lower levels of the police are getting the Kurds of this, to that. Well, when you start to look at those things, they will have huge shortcomings. Because what you need to have in any covert action or overt action, realistic chance of success. Those formulas lead to uncertain outcomes, but one thing you guarantee is bloodshed.
So what could go right? Right now, where it seems to be, hey, we took this action. The press loves the word quagmire. They love that. Keep repeating it. It becomes politicized. What could go right?
Well, first of all, I want to come back. You got to recognize what did go right. This is not the Middle East of just a couple of years ago. We have Arabs working with Israelis. We have Arabs working with Arabs against Iran. We have Syria is no longer a puppet. Hezbollah is crippled. The Houthis, and they're not jumping in with full force.
No,
right?
I wonder why. Why is that?
There's a price.
The price dependent. Yeah.
There's no help. You mentioned earlier, Charlie. There's no help coming to them. You do it, you're going to pay a price. So the question now is, where do you want to be on this? And I think a lot of these elements are trying to find some way to just hold on. And this is overwhelming force. When you cannot stop yourself from being bombed, you have no self-defense. You're in a fight and you have both of your arms at your side and you're bleeding. Hit me again one more time. You can only do that only in Rocky movies, right? So I think they're in a bad place. It'll get worse. They're talking about a couple more weeks. And so I think what's wrong, I'm wondering what is good? What is a victory? Please define victory for me.
Well, Trump is not great as in messaging on this. I think so. Um, well, listen, half of me thinks the media is totally against him and will interpret everything he says in a negative light, which I think is true. I mean, the media, in a sense, has taken sides on this. They would love to jawbone through relentless negativity. I see everything you're saying. I've been seeing that for a while. That, no matter which way we put it, we literally downgraded one of the world's biggest belligerents into almost nothing. I mean, either way, it's kind of a win. But every headline coming out is negative. Oil's going to 200. I saw somebody said oil at 200. Like, what?
It might go to 200 for 48 hours.
Yeah, okay. It almost went to 248. It went to 120 before everybody's algorithms kicked in the other way and said, that's overbought,
Let me respond to it in a couple of ways, Charlie. I think one of the things that when you walk through the door of CIA, it's etched in the wall. In other words, what is your mission? What is it all about? And it says, it's a quote from the Bible. You shall know the truth and it will set you free. In other words, when you walk through this room, leave your political leanings aside.
I know.
Try and look at the problem. Whether you like Trump, you don't like Trump, you like Biden, you don't like, that isn't it. Is the world, what I'm trying to do today is address, and this is where I think analysis gets screwed up. If you come with a bias, you're going to be preset in getting it wrong. And if you're an investor, if you're a hedge fund, if you're preset, if you're not finding that, just give me the facts, whether it's quality data like S3 or is it good source information that provides it. So I think the other thing that's missing, which I'm amazed, there's a magazine I read, I'm not going to name it, but it's a political magazine, and I was reading it on the train yesterday. Every article is framed, they don't realize it, it's framed in the last century.
Yeah.
In other words, this is how we did it then, and this is how I think people are slow on the uptake everywhere, that we are looking at a major reshuffling of world power. It isn't just about Iran. China is now affected by what's happening in the Middle East. Russia is. In other words, there is a shifting on how the models that we're using for regime change is moving so fast that I think a lot of the analysis is this writing to the same subjects and not standing back gimlet-eyed at the facts and saying, forget President Trump. Is he in or out? Doesn't matter. At this point, what's happening? Where are you going? And what do you need to do? I don't think I don't mean it to sound quite the way. I think if people came at it in a nonpartisan way and just were to sit in a room, it's not that hard. It's not that hard.
I agree 100%.
If you in America, I don't think it's that hard. The average person in the street's actually pretty darn smart.
I'm not a commodities trader, but I could tell you Sunday night it was a wicked, and Monday was a wicked overreaction. It was absurd. It was absurd that oil was going to $200 a barrel when the country making it go to 200 barrels an hour is like limping along with a leader who's impotent, literally impotent. I mean, he's the stupid son of the Ayatollah. Remember, he said, he basically said, don't make this guy our next leader. So it made no sense to me. But, it was literally headline after headline after headline. And I'll tell you, if what you're saying is right, and I believe it is, because it's Occam's razor, it makes
the obvious answer. The obvious answer is
right. Could oil go down to $40 a barrel?
Well, I was going to ask a different question.
Well, if Iran's pouring, Venezuela's pouring, Russia's back at it, we have a happy world. Hey, one could look optimistic in this dark cloud, right? But there are so many moving pieces, unpredictable. I've never seen it this way, a man of a certain age. I've never seen it with so many different possibilities.
But this is what must be like you live for this.
I love it. I'm waiting for the agency. I have a cloak and dagger in my closet. I'm hoping they call me back. But I love the academic side of it until I start to sit back and say, wait a minute, this isn't some movie. This is real life. This is us. This is our grandkids. This is not for entertainment. We have to get better at this.
Do you think
we have to get better about where we're going, what we're doing, and be much more practical about it? And I don't know how we shed the extent that we have become polarized and partisanized. I think it's doing a great disservice. And, there's a book that Jack Kennedy wrote it along with Ted Sorensen, which was Profiles in Courage.
Sure, sure.
And you pick 10 or 12 people that really want to stand up and start talking on principle, and then maybe you'll be surprised if it doesn't come back in the trend. I think people are tired. I think everybody's drained. Some new, fresh thinking. But I think what's happening in the Middle East and its impact geopolitically, you need the data, you need the type of intelligence I produce, but at the end of the day, you need good reason, leaders who are prepared to live within the reality of it and not try and politicize every single aspect.
Do you think Trump's at? How would you rate Trump on this?
I don't rate presidents.
How good has he done a good job without rating him?
Let me rephrase it because I don't want to personalize it. Because first of all, we both lose all our audience.
Right.
I want to say that we're in the Middle East in a much better place than we were just a year ago.
Interesting.
Okay, we have to accept that. Russia and China are weaker than. Okay. Did I agree on exactly how Venezuela was done? If I'm happy about this and that.
Right.
But when you look at the end result, I have to say that we're in a much better place with the likelihood of it getting better. We have to avoid that it doesn't get messy in between. And that's when you have the self-delusional regime change and how things happen. You also have to learn more about history. If I can talk to the teachers of America, please put history back into the classroom. Much of what we see has been played out over and over in history. And so when you talk about regime change, it isn't the first time we've looked at what are the ingredients of it. So and again, this is what I did for a living, to a lesser degree. U.S. government, Justice Department approved everything I did before. It was to find that essence of reality. And that was, you bring it to the policymaker. They can make the policies, but get the best information in front of them.
So, two things. What happens if there's a fragmentation of Iran? Leadership doesn't hold. You have all these different elements that surround the capital. You have the Kurds, you have the Balochs, you have Kard down in the south. You've got a lot of different types of people that are there that have an interest.
Then I'm going to come back with Charlie, and we'll rate the president. Why would we rate the president? And that will be, can he manage this part of it? Right? The first part, it's self-evident, right? You've destroyed one of our biggest enemies.
Yeah.
Killed Americans behind a lot of things.
Yep.
How you manage this? It's a bit like, I always very fond of President Bush, George H. Bush, because he actually, Reagan indeed was very important in setting up the two empires, but who actually handled the fall of the Soviet Union? It was George Bush with a very talented group of national security advisors that managed all those folks. They managed it in a way in which you got somewhere through very careful moves. And so right now you're in a very difficult situation where you need that type of thing. The biggest, if I were sitting in a room, I said one thing you have to watch is hubris. Don't get carried away because you were successful in Venezuela. Don't think immediately you can fight the Cubans. In other words, you have to sit back and you have to look at this in a strategic way and make the right moves. This is why I'm coming back. I think there's a deal to be made.
You think Marco would make that deal?
Well, I think the president, it really ends up on his desk. I mean, if you want, this is administration very clearly run
by him
from the White House. I think Rubio has shown great skill throughout this. I don't feel the same about everybody, okay? But I would say this is someone that's been around the block in terms of how you do this. He's been the Senate both on intelligence and on foreign policy. He's been in there. So I think I haven't seen missteps in this area. And this is where the president should excel. It's the transaction, right? What can you do? Now, there are other pressures saying, you got to finish this off. We got to get Thomas Jefferson dressed up for this event. So people might not be satisfied. But if we can bring this to a close, keep it capped off, other things will happen in the world. I think we'll see a change in it. We're already seeing it between what will happen between the Arab states and Israel. There's a whole new world unfolding. Opportunities in the business world are tremendous. But you have to have a vision of where this is going to unfold.
So once it does unfold, and the opportunities come, let's just say it unfolds positively. I mean, you got an Abraham Accords that's probably going to be signed by other Gulf nations. You probably have rebuilding of Gaza, don't you? In some way, might come out of this.
You're tempting me to go to the sort of the basic instinct. I think we do end up in a better place. Russia has to be viewing this, and what does this mean for me? Cuba has to be. The world has to be looking about power.
When they look at this and are people that are challenging us in a very certain way, they look at what we just did in Venezuela. Cuba also is probably certainly in the same situation as Iran. I mean, their economy is no good. They have a system of government that's not servicing the people, etc. But they've been under control for such a long period of time. What are our adversaries? What do you think they're thinking right now?
I will tell you from my analysis, all roads lead to President Trump. In other words, if you go to the Capitol and how you make a decision, what does it mean to this one person? It's a very interesting phenomenon. So they're evaluating this. My concern and my point would be, it's the old Willie Nelson song. You have to know when to hold, when to fold. In other words, you want to be careful as heading for this bright, shiny sky that I'm looking at. And it sounds Pollyannish. Right now, people say, Jack, come on, give me this road. But when I'm looking at it, the trend lines, it's ours to lose here. And I think there's some self-restraint or whatever you want to call it, that we don't get so full of the use of the power that we think we can keep stretching it because it backfires. At a certain point, the dice go cold, the elements start to fall away.
I think
you have to know when you're there. We're not there.
Right.
And if it falls apart and there's bloodshed, then we'll come back and do a report card. Sadly.
I think Trump is good at that. Of all the things he's good at, if you notice, cut a deal with Delcy Rodriguez in Venezuela. Okay, she's nice to me. She's willing to, I'm ready to call quits. I'm done. All they have to do is be a little nice to him. Say we're going to behave.
Well, after Venezuela, almost every single president from every single country in Central America and South America made their way to Washington.
Yes. One of the things that I think is fascinating to watch.
It's amazing, right?
Almost all of them. Right. I think all of them.
I think there was a moment in time which Putin missed, and I thought it was the meeting in Alaska.
Right.
And what everyone said was, what is a failure? Nothing came out of it. And I said, wait a minute. You have to look at it. This thing was set up for a solution. So I'm just telling you as a government person, if you're going to have a summit meeting, it's 6 months of 70 people writing memos and what tie you're wearing. So instead, in this administration, Putin, we'd like you to stop off in Fairbanks or wherever. And he shows up. And the next day he calls the European leaders and they come and they sit in front of him. I mean, I would never allow myself to be sitting in a semicircle if I had a second in front of the president with the president addressing me. I mean, that was raw power.
Yeah.
But Putin missed the beat. This was the chance where Trump set it up for. All you had to say is, let's make that deal that we've been talking about for years. And it'll be a Trump deal, therefore it's a good deal, and you can get out of your box. Instead, because I don't think he's a master statesman, he decided he wasn't going to take the deal. Now he's sitting in a box over there. His enemy, one of his key allies, has been knocked out of the ring.
Yeah.
And a lot of other pieces have fallen apart in Syria. And the Chinese have said, wait, you're messing around. Now I got oil that I have to move through the Straits. We got to get this stuff back in order. Right. So I'm saying we just have to be careful now that there's so much temptation to use American power. I've said it on this show. I've said it. Most of the time, America, the ugly American isn't really accurate in this sense. We've never used our full power. We've always tried to accommodate, and I'm talking Republican, Democrat. We're using full power now to good effect. You shouldn't use it continuously.
Yeah,
you're going to run out of room.
And pride goeth before the fall, or cometh, or goeth.
Either way. So my point is, you have to watch your rearview mirror as well, right? What's behind you. So in a bad situation of confusion and so on, I actually think we're in a subliminal way. We're moving to it. Possibly, if we don't blow it as a human race, if we don't blow it as Americans, if because America, again, I'm an American exceptionalist. Let me not just be any bones about it. I think our intentions are truly designed to make it a better world. I think our original founding power, what we're trying to do, the world we want, isn't to become the imperial government.
I agree with that.
And I think most of the world sees it that way. That's why we still have people pouring in here. So I think if we stay true to that, trying to build a better world, then I think there's room for hope. I have a lot of grandkids. I have 15 of them, better known as 15529s, which we want to talk about in these programs. Right? But I'm halfway through them. So you got to look beyond today, and people need to speak out. As I said, we need a little more leadership in about every corner of society, whether it's schools, politics, whatever. We need people that are deciding. I'm gonna not say I'm putting the country first. I'm gonna walk across the line every time I think it has to be done right. I mean, there ought to be things we agree to without such nonsense.
By the way, before we let you go and save the free world, or the world,
I'm ready. A little slow out of the starting gate, but I'm intellectually ready.
This is just an asshole journalist question. We always have to ask them. And you could say, I don't want to go there, but when is this going to be over?
When it's over. So Yogi Berra said.
Yogi Berra. It's not over till
we're in New York, right? I mean, who doesn't? Isn't life and isn't the world a process? I mean, we're coming up on the 250th anniversary of democracy,
okay,
right?
Are we closer to the end, in your opinion?
I'm sorry, Charlie.
Closer to this thing being sorted out in a meaningful way? Or
so what does that mean? Does that mean no more bombing, no more military action?
And we kind of all back off. There's some sort of a...
Is that what you mean by the end?
Whether it's regime change or like regime, transformation or whatever.
I think
it stops.
I think there's ebbs and flows in history, right? And where are we, right? And there's a vision of we're in the 21st century, right? And the question is that going to look like the 20th century? And we started off with a lot of turmoil, right? And my sense is what lies ahead is a better. If we play our cards right, I think we're in a better place. Don't count on it for Mr. Green's life, right? In other words, over. Will it continue? Will there not be other bad people? Will there not be a 9/11 out of somewhere that rocks the place upside down? In other words, you can't count on it. But if I were just betting on treasury bonds, is that a good thing to do?
Yeah.
In other words, I think once we sort, we're there, and how we play this next round, last inning, whatever it is, last 10 yards on the football field.
So we're in that last
term.
So I got you.
This cycle.
I got you admitting we're in the last 10 yards on this thing.
Oh, success.
Yes.
And whether you're going to score or not.
Yeah.
Right. What happens the last 10? Let me tell you. I was just going to say, you beat me to it again, Charlie. My point was, what you have to be careful on the 10-yard line is you don't fumble the ball.
Right.
And so I'm saying we're on the 10-yard line. Got a good offense, but hey, there's hands. Sometimes, you try that pass that we practice all the time, just didn't work out. The guy tripped. So my point is, I think we're about to head into something. I don't think we can sustain. This is, again, another Yogi Berra thing. I think we're at a high level of tension and ourselves and here in the country. I don't think it's sustainable. How does it end? If it's not sustainable, I don't know. But I want to come down on the positive side of the sustainable. Maybe there's a brighter day, but don't bet on for life. You got to keep watering the plants.
I think there is a better day. We're going to end on a better day. How's that?
We are going to end there. Yes.
Jack, you're welcome to sit around and fall asleep as me and Bob talk about stocks.
No, I'm glad some of your drinkers. Maybe that'll.
No, the Celitas.
Celitas. So you can stay up and watch. Listen to us.
But thank you for having me on, Charlie. It's always
the best.
A good time, and I think we have a frank and open discussion, which I hope people recognize it for what it is, which is, and look, I think we're trying to tell the way we see it.
And by the way, Bob, I say this with Bob and I say it to you, what we strive for in this, and it's, this is the S3 way, it's unbiased, just the facts, ma'am.
Just the facts.
And try to understand stuff.
That's what I sell. By the way, I'm giving Bob back his glasses. So that people can see my back. So that but I haven't kept your total focus. How's that for finishing line?
You kept my total focus.
I'm trying. You told me that you have 10 best quotable quotes. So I was really trying hard to get into number 9.
Trust me, you were in our year-end special like a lot.
A lot.
All right, so I'm sure this broadcast is going to end up there too. Again, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Stick around, and by the way,
Jack,
you want to hear some actionable calls? Do we have them?
We got some actionable calls. We sure do.
I wish I had the money to back them up, and I'm all ears.
You want to borrow you want to do some Robin Hood trading? I
live just south of Atlantic City.
Well, man, you know what it's like. Well, this isn't really gambling. This is quantitative analysis, I guess is the best way to put it, right?
So last week we made a call on Guidewire,
right?
Which we said was a bullish call.
What's the symbol on that?
It's GWRV. That was the call. Okay. Bullish call. Stock was up 5%, so that's a check in our.
Oh, you got it. Nice.
You got that right. That was our one call for last week. This week we actually have 2 new picks. One is Adobe, which is interesting because that's a software stock, and we see short interest rising into earnings. Usually that's a bullish signal. And we feel that you can see a pop in Adobe when it reports Thursday afternoon.
Interesting.
That's a bullish pick. And then we have Dollar General. We're bearish on that. Usually when you see short interest dropping into an earnings call, that signals a bearish price action. They are putting out their earnings Thursday morning. So we have Dollar General bearish and Adobe bullish. Those are the 2 picks of the week.
Interesting. Dollar General did over the years attract some interesting activist plays.
Correct.
Right. I remember Carl Icahn was in there. A couple of stories I broke over the years. So,
correct.
That stock has got a lot of heat. Anything else?
Yeah. So we'll tie the data. The thing we talk about all the time is the data talking to the news. Right. You're the news. We're the data. And Jack, you can play along on this. We're going to draft you back into the conversation because one of the things that we've had our eye on in this show quite a lot is shipping stocks. We've been talking about global shipping quite a bit. And when you look on the Bloomberg terminal, if we could pull that up, please. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. So the Z-score, which is the standard deviation from the mean, on some of the biggest shipping companies, the short interest on that is 3 or 4 times their historical averages. So you heard it here first. What success is, what could happen in the Strait of Hormuz. So these positions have been building for quite some time, and probably they revert back to mean.
Oh, interesting.
Given what we just heard. So that's how you take intelligence, news, and data, and triangulate the thing that we were talking about.
So let's unpack that a little. The shorts are going to come off on this based on.
They should, based on what Jack just said.
That I think. Let me just make a comment.
That's why I threw it to you.
Good. I think some of the shipping companies are going to nail this. Some might not.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
Got to pay a lot of money for me to describe which ones will and which ones won't.
Well,
but I think what I'm really saying in seriousness, there are some very serious people around these accounts because it's life and death getting this right. I think some of them are very, very smart, very well informed.
Makes sense.
Makes sense.
So then what else we got this week? We got, another thing that we like to talk about in the show is Chinese stocks.
Yeah.
We get, believe it or not, we have folks out in Hong Kong, in London. It's a global business. When we talk about China and we talk about our data in China, it gets a lot of attention. It's a lot of attention. A lot of people have their eye on the Hang Seng tech index, particularly Xiaomi, Lenovo, the maker of laptops, etc. And you're looking at BYD, which is the maker of electronic vehicles, etc. The shorting of the index is high, and then also on a standard deviation, historically high. So people are looking at the Mideast and they're looking at the Chinese economy, and it's across the board.
And this isn't the play. Remember, earlier in the year, early in Trump's term, short interest built, I believe, on the notion that they might be delisted. Remember, there was a lot of talk about delisting Chinese companies. That never came.
It never came out.
This is on the economic impact.
Correct.
So I'm going to accept Charlie's invitation to come back in about 2 months, because this is a subject that I'm really interested in right now, because some of my clients are really interested in. So I would hope to be able to make a modest contribution.
Okay.
Well, you're always welcome. So
But I need time. Well, what I'm saying.
Why don't you give us a little insight into the Chinese stocks
I'll tell you exactly why.
from the CIA operation?
Let me tell you exactly why, and that is, what I'm selling is human source information, right?
Right.
So I'm not going to do spontaneous. What I'm saying to you is, this is a subject that now has been joined. This is a subject we really need to answer. So now I have clients saying, Jack, I need the answer.
Right.
So now I go seek the answer. This is the difference between IA. So then when I come back in a couple of months, I won't give you which stock to bet, but I think we can talk safely about what I think are some trend lines. This is a tease.
We're not going to.
But you have to make. People have to make.
We're not going to.
People have to make bets right away. But I'm telling you, the way the process works on my end is different than when you're sitting in a hedge fund and you hit the button and data.
Well, that's an interesting point, because what Jack and what you guys bring is this sort of more or less like a forward-lookingness to data.
What's predictable.
And the sort of AI. One of what's great about AI is, like, it cuts my research time in like minutes
to nothing.
Tell me how many people met with President Trump at the White House. I needed to find that out, last Friday because of some story I'm doing. And instead of like calling this guy, calling that guy, getting the log,
It's public information.
The log is public, and it comes up on AI like in a second.
I only add 5% to that. Well, wow, what a 5%!
But that's
the last mile.
I'm just saying.
That's the last mile.
It takes it over that 10-yard line without fumbling.
I'm just saying, you need the 95.
I agree.
Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
Well, between Jack Devine and S3 data, you get that. You get over the goal, over the line, over the goal line, so to speak.
You will have a 360-degree view of the positioning, and then the geopolitics and what's happening on the ground that the AI consensus cannot give you.
Do you want to end here, or are you still rolling?
No, we
I think we covered the world. We solved all the world's problems. I think we did. But I think what's great about this conversation is that if you're in the markets, if you're looking to, if you want to see beyond the headline you're reading in the New York Times, you got it right here from one of the best in the business, Jack Devine. It's not all negative. It's not all black. It's not black. It's not white. But there's progress here. This is a situation that could be really long-term good, I guess is the best way you put it.
It's better, in life it's better to be an optimist. Yeah. It's so easy to be a pessimist. Right?
But this one, you got good evidence.
Yeah, so you try and come at it honestly, but I just find that I do better. I strive differently when I feel optimistic.
Oh, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did it on our show. I'm going to end it there. Bob is shamelessly promoting.
I'm shamelessly promoting Soliton. Very, very, very effective.
I just take a cup of coffee. Yeah. My office won't let me on. The fact that they don't know that I've had coffee today. You may have picked up on that. I'm really I'm really not usually this exciting.
You were great.
But I'm going to try this. You might not be able to shut me up if you put this on.
If you take this for the next 30 days and tell me that your immune system is more powerful, I will buy you any dinner anywhere in the world. For the three of us.
Wait a minute. We're talking airfare. Wait a minute.
San Pedro is opening up very soon.
I'm reading the fine print. That includes airfare.
Yes, it does.
Okay, business.
Anytime.
I think we're going to end it here before they rope me into this bet, and I owe these rich guys some money. This is Charlie Gasparino signing off for Bob Sloan of S3 Partners, for Jack Devine, the great Jack Devine of the CIA and the Arkin Group. This is Risk and Return. See you next week.